Dylan Dawson, welcome to ELKSHAPE podcast. It's application season.
It is. It's here again. It seems like we just went through application season, but here we are, and I'm stoked. It's like Christmas for me, man. It's you put in your apps, and then the draw day. It feels just like Christmas morning. Of like, did I get the tag I wanted? What am I doing this year? And then I usually follow that right up with a conversation with my wife. Sorry, honey, I'm going to be gone for this many weeks.
Yes, sir. It is the it is a cycle, and we're in that cycle where we got to do this podcast proper. We got to guys. The goal today is to expose you to kind of how we both approach application season and the tools we use. It is not a coincidence that I have elk tags, plural, in my pocket every year. And in this day and age, it's pretty competitive. So we're going to have to give you this information. There's a lot of resources out there, but I think a lot of people have overlooked that if they're an elite member with OnX, which most people are, there's some tools that you didn't know about that you should have. And we're going to break that down. How was your elk season, man?
It was good. I just hunted Montana for elk. We'll get into it here in a bit, I'm sure, but next year I'm going to expand that a little bit. I've been doing some out-of-state hunts, but for some different things. I went to Alaska last year, did an archery caribou hunt, was super cool. As far as elk season goes, though, like, man, Montana, you were out here this past year. It's an opportunity state, especially as a resident when you're, I don't want to say guaranteed, but you've got a really good crack at some of these archery specific tags. You can have a really good hunt. So, a lot of what I've been doing the last 4 or 5, 6 years is really honing in on Montana and trying to maximize my time and effort there. And then, like, I've done some out of state mule deer hunts and so on and so forth. But yeah, man, it was good. Archery hunt, I think started late September when a lot of other folks have kind of been burned out already. Is when I'm usually starting my archery season, which allows me to go on some cool hunts with buddies and call and like kind of get my feet wet, getting elk close before I actually have a bow in my hand and I'm in the unit that I can hunt. Ended up shooting a cool herd bull the second day of my hunt. He was broken up. His beam was busted on one side. I didn't know it at the time, but he had an arrow sticking through his back straps. Um, he came in running in, screaming, chasing off satellite bulls with a broken beam and an arrow shoved through his back. And yeah, was super blessed with that bull. Like especially walking up on him and seeing the arrow, I was like, I'm so glad that that all worked out the way it did because by the time my arrow hit him, he was dead in seconds and could not have went better. So that was super cool. And then after that, on day two of the hunt, um, I got to spend some more time kind of calling and just being with my uncle and my dad on that hunt. Called in an absolute giant bull for my dad. He came into like 5 yards, like 350, 360 type bull, but just mass and just what you dream of. And came in super close, but it just the situation wasn't right, didn't work out. So that one was an absolute heart crusher. Um, Being a couple yards behind him and seeing that bull and just not getting an arrow off, but it was good.
So when you said there was an arrow in its backstrap, like was there a broadhead buried in the spine, like part of the spine, or was it just like part of the shaft? What was in it?
All of it. Broadhead shaft wasn't broken off. It was, I would say, it probably had 6, 8 inches left. Like in front of the fletchings was sticking out. What was crazy is I saw this bull the night before. I located him the night before at last light, like it was almost too dark to see. I sound checked a drainage, and it's a drainage that I've known, like I've wanted to kill a bull or hunt a bull in there for probably the last 5 years because every time I'm in there, it feels perfect. And I've never found elk in there, but I knew it was just a matter of time. So I checked it. A bull responded down below me, and I threw up the binos, and I found him right at last light. And I could tell he was broken, or I didn't know if he had a club on one side, but something was up. Um, and it looked like he was wallowing on his right side, like was a dark patch I just thought was mud. Even when I shot the bull the next morning, I thought it was just mud or, some dried mud caked on is what I thought it was. And it ended up being dried blood is what that spot was. So I ended up shooting the bull. He was quartered away fairly steep. Um, And so I actually used what I thought was the mud, ended up being the dry blood spot, as like the perfect spot to anchor my pin. Because where he was, how he was standing, I was like, if I can hit there, like I'm gonna go through all the goods and it'll be perfect. And so I settled my pin on that spot. And so arrow was perfect, shot was great. Where I hit is exactly where the exact same angle that whoever had shot that bull previously had shot him, because that arrow went in the exact same angle mine did. It was just 6, 8 inches high. So it went in like right in front of the hind quarter, up kind of through the back straps, and was, I don't know if it was lodged in the front opposite side shoulder or what, but it was pretty much in him lengthwise. I mean, if they had hit 4 or 5 inches lower, it would have been perfect. So yeah, when I walked up on that bull, actually, I still didn't know, and it was confusing for a second, man, because like it was the exact same angle I shot him, steep quartering away on the right side. And I walked up and I was like, I saw the arrow sticking out and I was like, man, I hit that bull higher than what I thought. Must have caught an artery or it caught something, right? Obviously he's dead right here. And I walked up there and it was green fletchings instead of orange. And I was like, so just like tripped up by it in the moment. It was like, how, like, that doesn't make any sense. And then I looked and my shot was the exact same angle, 6 inches lower.
Oh my gosh. What did you shoot him with? What broadhead?
The Evolution hide. I know we've talked about that one in the past. I've now shot 3 bulls with that broadhead. I shot a caribou in Alaska this year with that broadhead. This is the only bull that I've shot, the only animal I've shot with that broadhead that I haven't seen die in sight, but he died 20 yards around a bank. Like I heard him crash, saw like I didn't see him crash, but he was right there. Um, yeah, I love the head. This bull was 60, I think 64 yards. Um, and he was broadside when he came out, and I drew, and he was broadside, and he was going to stop, and felt really good. And he, at the last second, kind of turned quartered away. And in my mind, I was like, just wait, he doesn't know I'm here. But I was in the wide open, like there was cows 10 yards to my left, one like 15 yards to my right in the wide open. So I was kind of exposed, definitely not rushing it, but when he turned quartered away right at the last second, I was like, just wait, you're good. He doesn't know you're here. And then like that pin was so solid and I was just so rock solid. I was like, oh, we're good. Just execute the shot. And honestly, I think it helped having that dried blood spot to anchor my pin on to, not float it on his body. That was like pick a spot and that was the perfect spot. But, yeah, that bull was 60, I think 63, 64 yards quartered. Um, that was the only non-pass through, but it buried all the way up in him. I found the arrow as I was pulling off the last front quarter, if that makes sense. So I'd completely got the elk taken apart. The last front quarter, I was like, "Yep, there it is." Pulled it out, and it was in good shape. I love that broadhead personally.
Okay. And what broadhead did the unfortunate person
I
use?
think that one was a slick trick, if I remember right. Slick trick or a muzzy, one of those two. It was like a 3 or 4 blade
Yeah.
fixed, and I've shot a couple bulls with slick tricks. They flew good. I shot them. I typically didn't find enough blood as much as I wanted to with those broadheads, so I kind of went away from them. But yeah, I think that was a product of maybe if a bigger cutting diameter, you would have caught something where they had hit it, but it just, again, 4 inches lower, it would have been money.
Yeah. Have you used the hide on any like tougher shots? Like I mean, obviously quartering away, going through the back and coming into the front cavity. That's a tough shot with a mechanical. You shot that bull like that's going through guts,
Hmm.
stomach, lungs, and that's a hybrid head, so it's front deploying, but it does have that cutting leading edge cut. And I've used the hide on several
Yep.
whitetails and I've had really good results. But I don't know, like the owner of that broadhead, his name's Dale Perry. He's begging me to use that hide on an elk. He says he gets pass-throughs on everything, and I will say the entrance and exit holes are very impressive.
Yeah, that's this one here. I don't know if this was this year's bowl. I think it was last year's bowl. Um, I will put it this way. I've never had a pass through on an elk until I started shooting this head. And everything that I've shot has zipped right through it except for the bull this year because it was, again, entered right in front of the hind quarter and buried in the front. So had that have been broadside, it would have. The caribou I shot this year blew through it. The other two bulls that I've killed with them, like buried in the ground behind it where I had to like dig it out. And those shots were, I think, 55 and 42. So I'm shooting close to 80 pounds. And then I don't think my arrows are 463 total. So it has a bit of kinetic energy, which I feel safe shooting a bigger head. I was super skeptical on shooting a bigger head until some conversations with Dan Picar, who shoots the same head and has killed a pretty crazy amount of elk with that head. And he's had some frontal shots and everything else, and could not say enough good things, so I switched over to it. But to answer your question, everything else has been broadside with that head besides this past year's bull. So I haven't had like a quartering to or a frontal shot or anything like that. Um, but broadside, it seems to just zip right through them.
Awesome. Well, I guess let's get into application season. At the time of this recording, I believe Wyoming and Arizona are probably both open and going to be open for a little bit. There's a window there. I know that Montana seems to come up there pretty quick in March, and then New Mexico. Trying to think. Utah's a little later. Nevada's about the same time. Um, Idaho already sold their OTCs, which are hardly over the counter, but they are, but they'll still have their limited entries. Washington State will have some opportunity for their application in May. Oregon, I'm sure I'm missing a state. Oh, New Mexico. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. And I think you should hunt elk every year because I don't think you should just save up for this really cool tag and then like have no elk hunting experience with a really cool tag. I think people can appreciate that. But for you right now, what state do you want to kind of start with, slash what tools do you want to look at?
Yeah, so I mean, to kind of kick it off, application season is like it can be super daunting. It can be as I think as big of a hurdle, if not more of a hurdle, than buying a bow and going elk hunting in your local state or doing whatever, right? Like picking up hunting in general. You start talking application season, and man, the first couple of years that I was in like the application season mindset, and like I need to start applying for points, and what does this mean, and what is a preference point and a bonus point? Why aren't those the same? Are they the same? um it felt to me like somebody was talking French. Like I just didn't you didn't know. And then once you get one state figured out, you start talking another state, and it's a whole another set of problems and regulations, and you kind of have to treat each state as its own separate individual like problem that you're going to solve to go hunt there eventually. um, but yeah, as you hit January 31st is Wyoming elk non-resident. You got to apply there, and like that one for example, I applied 2 days ago to that. I finally have enough points. Um, and what you can do in Wyoming, I'm going to try not to rabbit hole too much into each specific state because this podcast could be 9 hours. But in Wyoming, for example, all you have to do is get your application in by the 31st. And then you have until I believe it's May and to edit that application and change it. Um, which again, that's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down. But I did just apply for Wyoming. I've got 7 points, and I'm super stoked to hunt Wyoming elk hopefully this upcoming year. I've heard great things as long as you're okay tangling with grizzly bears once in a while. So hopefully we find more elk and less grizzlies. But to get back to application season, we at Onyx, like obviously we are map first. That's what Onyx is built on. That's what people know us by. That's what they purchase from us, and that's what they use is the map. We have recognized that it is getting harder and harder to draw tags, whether the demand is staying the same and there's more people now, whatever it is. Like it's not getting any easier to draw tags. There's still a ton of awesome opportunities out there that people can take advantage of. But we wanted to kind of get in front of that and combat that a little bit with draw odds and some different application resources for the users to be able to take advantage of that and actually put tags in their pocket. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have tags in your pocket in the fall, the map doesn't really do you much good, right? Like you got to have tags in order to use our map. So that was kind of our mindset. I'll share the screen here in a bit and we can dive into it. But all encompassing application season tool sets for elite customers. we offer a digital membership to Hunt and Fool. So Hunt and Fool is a super awesome partner of ours. Absolutely love the folks that work there. They're crazy knowledgeable on where you should be hunting, what states, what units, like where the changes are, what's different in Colorado this year, you name it, like that's what they know. That's their main business. So we offer a digital membership for that for free, being an elite member, which is, I think it's like a $50 value, $49.99. That gets you the eMag. So this, like the actual magazine for Arizona, Wyoming, just came in the mail for me yesterday. What you get with the digital version is you can read this magazine online, so the eMag version. You get access to previous tag holders. So if I draw an absolute awesome tag in New Mexico that I've never stepped foot in, Hunt and Fool has a list of folks that have hunted that unit that are willing and able to talk to you. So like maybe I can't get down there and put boots on the ground. I can call up four dudes and be like, hey, I just drew whatever tag this is. I heard you had it. Like, could you give me any insight? Like, were you finding the elk up high, down low, water? What should I be looking for? So that's a super valuable resource. And just a lot of other things with Hunt and Fool. If you're an elite member and you're not utilizing that, like you're missing out if you're applying to tags. The second prong of that is Hunt Reminder. So again, we realize if you forget to apply for a tag, you're not going to get the tag. I mean, I've heard horror stories of guys that are like max points in a specific state, and they're like, one more year, and I should be able to finally catch it and draw that. And they forget, like, the state might change the application deadline by 2 days or something, and they miss it. And now they're never going to potentially catch that tag that they were trying to get. So Hunt Reminder, what that does is you log in there. Again, it's completely free as an elite member. Log in there and you say, I'm interested in these species, these states. They will send you a text message. I just got one yesterday with like, these application dates are now open, or these applications are now open. You have 1 day left on Wyoming, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a reminder, so you never miss applying to those states. So that's a super cool tool. And then the one that we're going to spend the most time in, excuse me, is our own tool, Hunt Research Tools. So Hunt Research Tools, think of it first and foremost as draw odds. You got to know your odds in order to get a tag. And first and foremost, as draw odds, it is more than that, and we intend to continue to add more features and more value to customers through that tool. So first and foremost, it's draw odds though, and we can kind of just dive into that and run through some scenarios and teach people how to get it set up. Again, Hunt Research Tools is free for all onX Hunt Elite members. If you're not sure what that is, like premium members, you get single state. Elite, you get all 50 plus Canada and a lot of other cool stuff, including application season tools.
Yeah, you get Hunt Reminder, digital membership to Hunting Full, and then you have this research tool. And also, there's a lot of like when you open up the app, you're going to get notified of kind of some quick exclusive deals because, I mean, there's just constant reward. And what's the price difference between a premium and elite?
It's $60 difference between premium and elite if you're paying yearly for elite. Which I mean, $100 for elite. Again, I work here. Obviously, I'm trying to sell the product, right? For $100, like I just went and bought some more rifle ammo. That's like $80, $90 a box, and I'm gonna burn through that at a range really quickly. Like pair of boots are 400. Like everything's so expensive. To know where you can and can't hunt and have access to tools where you can put more tags in your pocket, like for $100 is, yeah. I'll let the folks figure out if that's worth it or not.
I mean, there's so many different entities out there that will take your money, and I'm just trying. I guess my message today is I'm trying to show you guys watching this how easy it is to apply and do some research, and why you don't need to have 37 different memberships to 37 different entities. This is kind of like a one-stop shop. This is literally all I use to get my tags every year. So we're going to show you the playbook. I was messing with the Hunt Research tool before it came out last year, and then I was telling Dylan just a month ago in December, I was basically doing all my research inputting all my points for each state. Remember, guys, I've been in the game for 20 something years. There's some states I got 23 points in. So this is a one-stop shop. It manages my portfolio for each state. And then we're about to show you how easy it is to navigate and figure out. The last thing I want you guys doing is putting in for stuff that you have no chance of drawing. I know the Hunting Full guys real well. Jared Lau's a dear friend of mine. And there are so many states that will have like an allocation for this many tags for non-residents, and you simply don't have enough points. It's impossible for you to draw. So a lot of guys will waste money and time putting in for tags that they will never draw no matter what. This will help simplify that.
Totally. And I'm going to jump into the hunt research tools proper here in a second, but what you just said, Dan, like we do a bunch of webinar masterclasses with the folks at Huntingful all through application season. We just did one like 2 days ago that was kind of application season for beginners, app season 101, you can think of it, where it's like define a preference point and a bonus point. What does that mean to me? Which it means two drastically different things, right? Like in a place like Colorado to date, before they make some changes, like preference points, if you don't have enough preference points, you're not going to draw. If it's a 4 point unit and you have 3 points, there's 0% chance that you're going to draw that tag. Whereas like Montana, a bonus point, if you have 0 bonus points and I have 10, so I go in, that Montana squares it, so I go in with 100 chances, you go in with 1, you still can draw that tag before me if they pull your name out of the hat before my 100. And so just those nuances and education. We also put those on our YouTube after the fact. So all that stuff we do with Hunt and Fool. Sometimes we'll dive into Colorado, like state specific stuff. We have a Colorado one coming up. Check those out to be educated. But so like I'm on our landing page right now. If you're watching this as well and not just listening to it, Hunt and Fool, everything we just talked about is right here, and it kind of just gives you a little bit more insight to what's what and why you need to be using it and how to access it. Hunt research tools. You can see this screen right, Dan?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is Hunt research tools. This is draw odds. This is our own. We built this. We're developing this. We're constantly improving this. So as it sits today, this tool is less than a year old. We have an entire team dedicated to working on this and improving it, providing more value. So what you see right now as it sits might look different in a month, might definitely look different in a year, because we're evolving it and changing it and improving it essentially. But wanted to run you through some scenarios here. So for anybody watching, I'm screen sharing the actual tool itself. When you get in here, one of the very first things that we want folks to do is just going to help you help yourself in the long run is if you go up to the right hand corner, click on my profile or my points. So I'm going to go my profile right here. It's got my name, got some information. Residency is a must to add here. That's going to change everything. If I'm looking at a Montana hunt for anything, if I'm a resident, that is going to show drastically different odds than as a non-resident, and same for any other state. So make sure that you add your residency. Simple drop down arrow. I've got Montana plugged in. I'm good to go. My points you can access from here. I've started to fill this in. This is a dummy account of mine. I've started to fill this in for some of my point levels right now. I don't have them all in here, but the next thing we want you to do is add your points. If you have 0 points in any state, fine. Nothing needed for this one. But if you've been accumulating some points and maybe you're just buying points and you're not sure what to do with them, you have to go in and add your points. It's super simple. I've got a few Colorado. Like I noticed, I don't have my antelope and elk points in here, so I'm going to go elk. I'm going to go preference point, and then I've got 3 points in Colorado. I know. The other thing, if you're not sure on these, because it can be really difficult to keep track of all of these, go to their website, log in, check how many points you have. I've had to do that in several different instances. Go to Colorado Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, put in your credentials, use the lost password 5 times because that's what I do. I never remember anything. And then physically see how many points you have, put it in here. Each year you accumulate a point, you have to go in here and update your points to be reflective of the actual draw odds. So Montana, like if I had whatever, you name it, Oregon, you go hit Oregon species, you get the gist. We don't need to spend too much more time on that, but get your points dialed in. That way you're seeing accurate draw odds for the state and species and hunt you are doing based on your points. Um, from there, it's similar to our app in the map. It's like there's 100 different ways to use this tool, and none of them are wrong. How I'm going to use this tool is probably going to be different than how Dan uses it and everybody else. So there's not really a right and wrong way, but kind of the next thing I want to show folks is how to get to a search criteria. So up here at the top, you go species. Let's talk elk. So I'm going to select elk, states. Let's look at, I don't know, Colorado. Then we've got a weapon. You can select multiple if you want. You can select one. I personally like to refine it to as detailed as possible. Let's just select archery here. Because once you start doing multiple states, multiple species right now, it's you get so many results that sometimes it can be hard to really focus in. So if you know you want to archery hunt Colorado, just select elk Colorado archery. If you're undecided and you just want to look at the opportunities, then go ahead and be like, yeah, I might do a rifle hunt and whatever. So I've selected those. I'm going to go ahead and hit search. It's going to pull me into Colorado, and then on the left hand side here I've got a whole bunch of information. I'll do my best to break down kind of what this information is and why it's valuable. But again, like some of this information you might not care about. The hunters per square mile will be valued to some folks. To some others, they might be like, yeah, I don't really care because that's made up of a bunch of different things: how much private, how much public, etc. But as it sits right now on the left hand side, this endless scroll is my options in Colorado for archery elk. Do remember that I have 3 points in here for Colorado. So it's going to show me, it's going to start by showing me opportunities that I can draw. You'll see on the left-hand side here. So this unit that's pulled up on the map, 77, it's going to say my points. I've got a 100% chance with 3 points. I do want to put like, not an asterisk here, but a big call out. This data, the draw data, is based off of last year's model. It will always be based off of last year's model. And that's pretty much anywhere you go. Whatever tool you're using out there, they're using last year's data, and it's not predictive of 2025. This is the actual data of last year. So last year, if I had 3 points in this unit, I would have had a 100% chance of drawing this tag. Colorado is a preference point state currently still. So if you look over in the next spot right here, this was for minimum points. This shows 99.9%. So just think 100% chance at 0 points. This tells me that unit last year was a 0% or 0 point draw. You could go into it with 0 points, you're going to get that tag. If that was a 2 or a 3 point, if that was a 2 point draw, for example, this next year could be slightly different. And that's a whole nother conversation that honestly the folks at Hunt and Pool are best to answer, and we've done a lot of webinars around that thing. Point creep is what it's called. But just kind of continuing to break down, in that unit they gave out 385 tags last year. Harvest rate was 14.65%. The other thing to note with this information is different states go about different stats like harvest rate differently. Like Montana's, honestly, I'm not a big fan of how Montana does it in my home state, because they take the cow tags, they take late season rifle elk hunts on private land, they take everything and combine it. So in Montana, you might see 35-40% harvest rate and think, well, I'm looking at archery in this unit, that's crazy high, right? Montana goes about accumulating and providing the data to us in a different way than Colorado does. So just want to also caveat that, like, know how the state does it, and that will tailor how valuable that is to you. Or, you know, even if it's not as accurate as what you want for that specific hunt, you can compare it to other units in that state, and it's going to be helpful. It just don't live and die by the harvest rate, for example.
Hey guys, we interrupt this pod to let you know about a little safety tip. We work with this company called My Medic. They make a first aid kit called the MyFac Mini. It is in my backcountry backpack, and I make sure that all my hunting partners have the same kit. And I make sure that we all know where we keep it in our backpacks. We know everything that's in it, including a tourniquet, and how to get to it quickly and how to use everything in it. We also have their larger med kits in our truck, our camper, everywhere where we're out and about, traveling, experiencing, having fun as a family. Safety first. Use the discount code ELKSHAPE. It'll save you 15%. Head over to My Medic, check out the MyFac Mini, especially you backcountry hunters. Back to the pod. Hey guys, we interrupt this podcast to let you know we are brought to you by OnX Hunt. Out of Missoula, Montana, these guys are the original gangsters when it comes to digital mapping for your mobile phone or your desktop. If you're like me, you spend a ton of time e-scouting. OnX Hunt, especially you elite members, you can take that map, turn it into 3D, and really get to know the lay of the land from the comfort of your own home. And when you're elk hunting like I am, I'm running tracking all day to know where I'm at, where I'm going, and where the elk are going to be. I'm never worried about getting lost. I know exactly where I am, and I'm never worried about trespassing because I know where I stand with OnX Hunt. If you want to save some loot and become an elite member and have access to all 50 states, enter the discount code ELKSHAPE at checkout. That'll save you 20%. Thank you, OnX. Back to the pod. Hey guys, going to interrupt the pod to let you know about one of our awesome partners, Peaks Equipment out of Bozeman, Montana. Peaks makes an array of backcountry stuff for those DIYers. So the first thing I'd recommend is the Duo headlamp. They have a green and a red. Both of them produce a white light. Each light has 3 different settings. You can hold a button down to make sure that it doesn't turn on in your backpack. All USB-C rechargeable, and the battery lasts a long time. That's probably my favorite product from them. And they also have gaiters to keep your boots and your garments dry, especially in those spring bear hunting scenarios or when it's raining. Shelters, they have a whole host of tarps and teepees, sleeping bags, stoves. They continue to put out awesome backcountry products that are proven to help have a more successful experience in the backcountry. Head over to their website or check out elkshape.com. If you're on the Peaks website, enter the discount code ELKSHAPE to save yourself 10%. Peaks Equipment continuing to change and elevate the game in the backcountry. Back to the pod.
We've got total square miles of land. We've got public land. So looking at the map, you can clearly see there's a lot of national forest in this particular unit. If you go down to the bottom right-hand corner, you've got some private down here, but just at a glance, there's a lot of public, a lot of opportunity there. And then we also broke down hunter per square mile. That's just how many tags they allot for that unit, how much area there is, how crowded is it potentially going to be. If you want to, you can then select this arrow on the right-hand side if you want more information about that particular unit, and then it breaks all of the hunts for that unit down. So you scroll down, you can see some point data, some quotas, some applicants. What has it done the last 2, 3, 4 years? As far as tags available, how many first choice applicants, minimum points, like you can see over the last, since 2020 to 2024, it's been essentially a 0-point unit. So that's probably not going to change, right? Now, if it was 0, 0, and then 2022 was a 1-point unit, 23 was a 2-point unit, 24 was a 2-point unit, like you could look at these trends and be like, yeah, it's trending up. It's getting more popular as far as how many points it's taking to draw this unit. Next year, it might be a 4-point unit. So you can look at some of this historical data to help inform some decisions. Last year, the harvest, according to the harvest information, it went down 1%. So it's pretty stable as far as the harvest in this particular area. And then you can look at different hunts in the same unit as well. Some, like this one, for example, is a cow hunt. This one's either sex. This one's a bull hunt. So any elk hunt in that particular unit, you can find more information about by going there. So going back to kind of the results, and I'm going to try to like skim through a lot of this information without, diving too deep into one particular area. But a couple other things you can do. Obviously, this map is interactive. If you wanted to see this same area in like the web map version of OnX, where you can drop waypoints, you can do all of the OnX things that you're used to doing. Upper right-hand corner, see more in OnX Hunt. It pops you right over there to that same spot where you can drop a bunch of waypoints and everything. Also, the left-hand corner up here in the map, if you just want the data and you're not interested in the map, we also just have a table view. This is a little bit more, um, it visually it looks a little bit more like Top Rut, which people might be familiar with. We acquired Top Rut and basically built this off of it. So this is a little bit more table and sheet. Here's the line item data for all of the hunts. I'm going to go back to map and then just show a couple other things. The top hand corner, right now it's sorted by draw odds. If you want the hardest draw odds, you just change it. Now you're looking at some of the hardest draw odds to get. If you want to sort by unit name, you can. So if I'm like, man, I know that I want to hunt unit 4, but it's a long list and there's a lot of information, just sort by unit. Now it starts at 1, 1, 2, 3. Here's unit 4. I can click on that. It's going to show unit 4 and everything that I need to see there. So you can sort by hunting pressure, harvest rate, how much public land, et cetera, et cetera. You can also search by unit. So if you're like, again, I just want to hunt unit 54, I know what I want to look at, just go hit search, hit 54, apply. Now it's going to just show you that. Or you could be like, I've heard about 54, I've heard about, 63, I've heard about these things. Like, here's the 4 that I want to hone in on. You just, again, click whatever ones you're interested in and then apply, and it will just show those results. And that honestly, man, is a super useful tool for me because um, there's so many results and so much data that sometimes it can be overwhelming. So if you do have it narrowed down, it's nice just to be like, yeah, here's the 4 that talking with Hunting Full or talking with a buddy who's gone or that I've hunted that I'm interested in, like just filter by that. Um, you can also filter by male, female. Obviously, if you want a bull tag specifically, you can filter by date ranges. So it's like if I know I have a 2 or 3 week window in October to go hunting, like that's my schedule, that's the time off of work, that's whatever. I can just filter hunts by that date range. And so I'm not looking at hunts that I just don't have the time to go do, right? Um, we have some youth only options, rut activity, veteran, you name it. So like that's a lot, and there's a lot to this tool. And I recognize that. Dan, any like questions as we're just kind of going through or areas that we should focus in on for listeners?
I'm smiling just because you have stirred up so many. I have listened to Hunting Full lecture to my athletes over 25 elk shape camps and one elk immersion. So I got a lot of time hearing about this stuff and I literally forget what I knew. And a couple things to point out. Just guys, Dylan said at the beginning, there's so much nuance to this. If you could just know that you're signing up for nuance and it's part of the deal. Let me give you an example. He mentioned Montana success rates. Montana, and I hope this changes, they rely on volunteers to call up hunters and ask them how their hunt went. Were they successful? You contrast that with Idaho. You have 14 days from the time you kill, actually 10 days from the time you kill, or 14 days, I think, when the hunt's over, to report whether or not you hunted, what units you hunted in the days. So the data is really good on the Idaho Fish and Game website. The data that Dylan's referencing in Montana, I'll just say it. It's not accurate. I could lie to Fish and Game and be like, nah, I wasn't successful. I could have been. There's just no, like, it's just not, they're not relying on mandatory reporting yet. I do think that'll change. Another point. When you're looking at Colorado and Dylan's got 3 points, maybe he wants to hunt unit 4 or 77, but maybe he doesn't want to burn. Like, I certainly wouldn't recommend burning 3 points on unit 77, which is our example. If Dylan puts in for something that's maybe 50-50 with his 3 points, and then on his second choice, he puts unit 77 in Colorado, he won't lose his 3 points if it's a second choice. I know Dylan knows that, but like you guys probably don't. And so it's like, oh crap. Like, so you have to like literally know each state. And Colorado's unique. Not every state looks past your first point and then burns your points up because so that's something. And then predictability as far as each state and how they're going to change because I want to give you guys an example. And Dylan, I'm going to answer your question. Why has it gotten so hard to get an elk tag? Because the information is so readily available. It's called the internet. It's not it's not YouTubers, it's not ambassadors. It's that what we're doing right now is showing you guys how to do this. Pre-internet, I used to have to like order each state's regulations. This is no joke, Dylan, and read through them. I distinctly remember applying for Arizona in the early 2000s, and they had a requirement that you had to mail in your application. You had to use a blue or black ball pin point. Yes, that was what they said in the language. Separate envelope and check for each species, and they were different dates. So, like, you had to order proclamations, read through. And so, the thing that can change a unit from year over year is, let's say, the information age. Dylan and I watched this sweet YouTube video. Guy kills a 400-inch bull in unit 77. And Dylan and I are like, oh, dude, 77's got, that bull's been breeding cows for the last 8 years. Those genetics are good. I'm going to burn all my points for 77. Well, if enough of us catch on to that, the draw odds that you're reading in this research aren't really true because it's only going off last year. So there's always trends where everybody with more points will drop down and burn points in a specific unit. There might be a ref winner kill. So this is, I guess I'm saying all that, Dylan, just so people know, like, application is a mixture of science, data, and a little bit of art. You know what I mean? And thinking outside the box.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. And honestly, what I equate it to is like, if you want it bad enough, you'll figure it out. Like I've said the same thing with just like elk success in general, right? Like archery elk success. Like, man, I went through so many years of just like, it's impossible. I'm getting close, but I'm not getting shots. I'm messing up. Like, it's impossible. And it's just like, or even calling, dude. I remember like not being able to call with a diaphragm to save my life. Like, I could not do it, and it screwed up some opportunities. And finally, like a number of years ago, I just got so frustrated. It was like I wanted it bad enough that even though I was like gagging, I couldn't do it, right? Like every time I was in my pickup, I had a call in my mouth, and now it's a non-issue, right? So if you want it bad enough, like if you want to go hunt these other states bad enough, like you will figure out the research. The information is out there. It is daunting. There's a lot of nuance, as Dan just said, but if you want it bad enough, like the information is there and you can figure it out. It's not impossible. So many people are doing it. You just have to be educated. And honestly, if you go on some of these out of state hunts and these cool opportunities and you see how awesome it is, like for me anyways, it just kind of fed the desire to be educated in other areas. Um, and yeah, there's so much nuance. Like Montana, for example, I'm looking here. Montana has notes, a lot of notes for these specific units of like, for one example, like in a deer unit, there might be two different hunt codes for the same unit. One of them is a 3-point tag. So Montana, like we've got note drop downs here that other states might not have. So knowing little things like that and just looking at the product and not being afraid to push buttons and try new things in the product and like, what does this do? What does this mean? Um, Without knowing that, you would look at that particular deer unit in Montana and be like, well, it says I can hunt bucks and it's like a 0.5% draw, or I can hunt bucks and it's a 12% draw. Like, obviously, I'm going to go hunt the 12% draw in the same units. That doesn't make sense. Well, that 12% draw is 3-point or less on one side, so it's a management hunt. Again, just that's one example of like there's so much nuance to this type of stuff. But our hope is this tool and where it evolves to in the next coming months and years down the road is that it becomes a tool that you can easily obtain the information that you need to obtain to make sound decisions. Um, Again, like Dan said, Colorado, that second choice, like I've got a bunch of points built up. Like I don't even have to go into it with points. I can just try and get one of those tags at 0 points so I can guarantee my hunt this year and keep building those points. Or Colorado, for example, has a bunch of leftover, I don't know if they call them leftover tags, but essentially tags that you can purchase that, like maybe I drew a tag and I couldn't go and I returned it. You can purchase those tags in Colorado. You have to be educated on when they're going for sale, what you want, phone numbers to call, et cetera, et cetera. But I know a bunch of people that every year go hunt Colorado on those return tags that they just call and they're like, what's available? I want to purchase it. Yep. They didn't even draw it. And it might be a good tag. Um, and we've talked about Colorado, Montana. Those are two of like 12 states to really look at. And so there's so much nuance. But again, our goal with this tool specifically is like you can hone in and actually make good of your time, energy, and money and go on more hunts because of it.
Yeah, well said. Well, I mean, we've showed the tools. I feel like guys are going to need to go get reps, update your profile. Let's finish with this, Dylan. Maybe talk about a couple tools in Onyx that you can use to kind of help. It's like your number one filter before you go into the research tools. Like, say, say a guy is really fit and he's like, I know I want to throw on that roadless filter, and then that will help me to pick out 5 or 10 units in Colorado that I got my eyes set on because I know that there ain't going to be an ATV coming up the trail, or this place isn't chocked full of logging roads. You could do that. Like, there's ways to look on the maps first to kind of like pre-filter before you dive into the research.
Totally. And so I guess to kind of break down that scenario in Wyoming last year, they switched it from general to I probably have the map up because I just applied to Wyoming not too long ago. So like here's the e-magazine. So if you see up top, like all these tabs on my screen here, like this is just from me applying to one state last year or last week. This was like Wyoming. I've got application, like I've got our research tools pulled up. I've got our web map pulled up. I've got Hunt Pool e-magazine pulled up or in front of me. I've got, how many points do I have? So I pulled up there, like here's where I applied. I've got the unit regs for Wyoming. Plus, I was literally looking at the webinar that I did last year with Hunt and Fool talking about Wyoming changes to help base what I was going to apply this year. So, like, I've got my ugly mug up on one tab. I've got Onyx Labs up here with Terrain X on the other. Like, I've got all of this just to apply to a general Wyoming non-resident elk. Um, so what I'm getting at with that is like there's a lot of different things to do here. Wyoming last year it's sideways, so I apologize about that. I wish I tried for like an hour trying to figure out how to turn this. It's probably super easy, but last year instead of just a general tag, they switched it into a west general, a south general, and an east general. So now if I go to burn my 7 points on a general tag in Wyoming, I need to choose, do I want to hunt the west area, the east area, or the south area? So going back to the map, I mean, if I really wanted to, I could draw some lines here, but I visually know like, okay, here's the west, the south area is like a small sliver down here, everything else is the east. Just looking at the map zoomed out, clear that in the west is the most public land. This east tag, there's a lot of private over there. You got a lot of BLM down through here. As you go closer to the west, you've got more national forest, it looks like. And so right off the bat, I'm like, okay, I'm interested in the west. It's also closer of a drive to me. I'm not going to be driving 16 hours to the southeast corner of Wyoming, where there's just a bunch of public land anyways, and I'm not going to pay for access or for an outfitter. Um, so just using the map real quick like that, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of honed in to the west. That seems to make sense. The other Another caveat in Wyoming is you cannot hunt uh, the the wilderness areas in Wyoming without a resident who goes through the proper steps and gets the paperwork or an outfitter. So I'm like, all right, let's just say theoretically these units down here interest me. I had a buddy who went down here at some point and he shot a big bull and I'm interested. Um, if I go on and select wilderness, you can see the color change there. Anywhere that's in the wilderness, unless I'm with an outfitter or a resident again who has gone through the proper steps, paperwork. I don't know what that all entails, but I know you need that. I cannot hunt in these areas at all. So let's just X those out. And there's some units that pretty much the entire unit is wilderness. Um, so it's like, okay, what does that do to this? If I was interested, let's say I wanted to hunt up in this range up here, and that's my plan, and that's what I apply for. If I don't know that as a non-resident, like pretty much everything on the map right here, which is a huge, huge area, like I can't hunt that as a non-resident. So using tools like that does help you narrow down where can I hunt, where should I hunt, where should I apply for, and then different things like slope angle. If you are, a little older, you're not in like great shape, et cetera, et cetera. If you're not able to like get after it in some super steep, nasty country, or if that's just not the hunt that you want to do, you can turn on the slope angle and you can see the area. So like if I wanted to hunt this specific drainage for whatever reason, um, I using this in the past and going through one of the gnarliest drainages in Idaho following Dan on a bear hunt, I know that blue and purple is like not fun. Like there's cliffs there, you need like rappelling gear. It's not cool. Um, so you can use things like this where in the upper right hand corner you see like okay, 5 to 10 degrees, 15 to 20, et cetera, et cetera. Like how steep, how nasty is this country? Obviously, you can also throw it into 3D and use 3D exaggeration and all these other tools, right? But this is a good tool of like, what is that unit like? How steep is it? How nasty is it? And one thing I tell people when they use this particular layer is look at this layer in an area that you've hiked before, like in an area where you're like, man, that was a gnarly pack out. That was pretty much my limit last year. I don't know if I could do any steeper or bigger. And then you look at that same area with this on, and then you can start to understand of like, okay, that was roughly a 30-degree pull that we had to get that elk out of there, and that was pretty gnarly. So compare that to the units that you're trying to hunt. So there's so much more, like you said, the roadless area. If you want to do backpack hunts, um, if you don't want to do backpack hunts, like where's the access? You can use the actual just regular old map on the computer to help narrow those down. And we, without even talking about the other tool, which is Terrain X.
Yeah,
And
Terrain
I'm not going
X.
to dive into this, but just want to show it. And we've talked about this like before on other instances. Like if this is an area on the map I'm interested in, I go over and hit Terrain X. Well, now it's going to pull up that exact same area with this tool that we call Terrain X, and it's going to allow me to look at different things like slope aspect, angle, and my internet is super laggy today since I'm burning on all cylinders on the podcast as well. But when this gets loaded up, you're going to be able to filter by elevation bands. So if you're like, I know that I want to hunt uh, I want to hunt high country this year. I want between 8,000 and 9,000 feet for whatever reason. Well, everything that's shown on the map now is between those two parameters. You can see as I move those out, the map changes. I'm looking for north slopes, south slopes, you name it, you can do it there. Also, you can filter by slope angle here. So I want steep slopes, and really this tool is mostly going to really help you e-scout an area once you've drawn a tag. I'm personally not in this tool a ton for like which tag should I draw. It's like, okay, I drew this tag, now I want to make the most of it. I want to find steep southern facing hillsides for feet or whatever it is. Then you go into this tool, start marking waypoints. What can I see from that area, et cetera, et cetera. So that's just a few things. Again, we could spend hours talking about different ways to hone in where you want to apply to then get to hunt research tools and what do I have enough points for? What can I do?
Okay, guys, I feel like we've given you enough to like get your appetite running. Maybe a little less intimidating, especially when you get your hands on these tools and start looking around. I think a lot of you are elite members and didn't know about this. Matter of fact, I guarantee it. So that's going to be a huge value add to what you already have, and I really appreciate the team at Onyx. They, dude, you guys have so many gangster nerds, and I call them nerds, and that's a compliment. That are constantly fix. If you're, I got to be careful how I say this, but if you're in the tech world and you've been in the game the longest, you've already crushed all those little silly bugs in the field that will drive a man crazy. So if you're looking, this is why I'm with Onyx, is because of the lack of bugs and all of the things that have been fixed over time. And it's just kind of like no one's been in the game, not even close, as long as you guys. So give it a shot. If you're not an elite member, I do have a code. I'll put it in the video description. Throw that in there. Save yourself some loot. But check out the Onyx terrain tools. Like that is the Terrain X is a game changer. And I was like smiling when you said between 8,000 and 9,000 feet. That's a clue, guys. That is a very good clue. That's all I'm going to say. Dylan, I wanted to bring up. We teamed up on my Public Land Hustle 2025 season 5 or 2024 season 5. You guys are the title sponsor to me running around, mainly self-filming, some videographers, cutting my teeth on public and private. I didn't think I'd be able to drop those till July or August of 25 because I'm just kind of a one-man show. But good news, man, I just exported the last hunt, which is in Montana. It's uploaded. And so I got them scheduled. And so I'm going to be rehabbing knee surgery when they drop, like right in February. But I figured February is a long ways from September. Could be a good time to drop those and get guys reminding of like how cool it is to hear that bugle juice flowing. So I'm really excited, and thank you guys for helping supporting that project. It is, I certainly would be lying if I said filming hunts is really enjoyable, because it's not, but it is enjoyable to go back and watch. So I'm just going to give that a shameless plug. Like Onyx helped me with all that this year, and thank you, and I hope to do it again in 25.
Yeah, man. Thanks for making that content. Like selfishly, that's what keeps me going in the off season. And hopefully, as people like watch those and they're like, oh, how many states did you hunt last year, Dan?
4.
Four.
Yeah.
So that's three more than pretty much most everybody does. And it's like those are obtainable hunts. Like get in, watch that, get fired up, get in, use the tools, and apply. But yeah, no, thanks for making that content and keep crushing it. And yeah, we're super stoked to be a small part of that. So
Are you going to Sheep Show West? I guess that's probably this weekend, or Western Hunt Expo, or
yep, sheep is going on. Yeah, sheep's going on right now. Usually I go to Sheep Show every year. I'm leaving next week to go to Mexico to go hunt little coos deer for the first time. So I'm super stoked on that. I'm gonna go spend some time in the desert. I know you were just in Texas, not too long ago, but man, last year we went down to Texas and did an aoudad hunt in February. It's a great time. It's super cold in Montana right now. It's gonna get cold next week. Um, I don't mind the cold. I don't mind the snow. I love it. It's part of why I live here. But it is nice to take a week and go to the desert and do some cool stuff and hunt some new species. So I'll be in Mexico next week, and then we will be at Western Hunt Expo. We actually share booths with Hunt and Fool. So if you're looking at the directory and you're like, why is an Onyx here? We are inside of Hunt and Fool's booth, just as a testament to like how valuable that partnership is and how close we are with Hunt and Fool. We they're gracious enough to give us some of their booth space, so we'll be there.
That's awesome. What's your Instagram handle?
Mine is dylan.hunter.dowson. Hunter is my middle name. Caught some flack. They're like, cool, you're a hunter. You put Hunter in your Instagram handle. That's my actual middle name. So yeah, just dylan.hunter.dowson is my personal, and then obviously Onyx Hunt is hard to miss.
Yeah, cool. All right, guys. Well, I hope this helps out. Drop in the comments below what you liked on this pod. If you have any questions, we'll circle back, read them, possibly do a 2.0 separations in the preparation. Thank you, Dylan. We'll catch you on the next one.